One thin cry, that's all I heard, and Torin yanked me off the sunny trail. We were skirting the pines west of Denver, Colorado, afternoon light flashing on granite like coins in a fountain. Torin, my black and tan German shepherd puppy, only 6 months old, carried himself like a compass with a heartbeat. One sound and he locked in. Tail flat, ears forward. The leash went tight across my palm and I barely caught my footing on the sandy switchback. People glance at him and see cute. Out here, he's a live instrument, nose, ears, paws, a little engine built to notice what I'd miss even with a map and a guide. He glanced back once as if to say, "You felt that, right?" Then he pulled harder. I tried to call out, but the wind braided my voice into the needles. Daylight makes you cocky. You think trouble waits for dark. It doesn't. Trouble sits 10 feet off the trail under a low bough, hides in a footprint half the size of your hand, pretends to be nothing until a puppy refuses to pretend with it. Torin lowered his head and began that careful, quiet trot. No sniffing around for snacks, just a straight line like he'd read a sentence in the air and wanted to finish it. "My name's Keegan Hart. I'm 41, I said out loud for no one, because sometimes saying your name out here keeps your head from running ahead of your feet. The city was behind us somewhere, glass and angles and traffic hum, but up here the afternoon had a different clock. A jay screamed. Torin halted, one paw lifted. He pointed, not with a nose like a pointer, but with everything he had. Chest, spine, intention. On the dusted dirt just off the trail, I saw it. A small plastic bottle, half full, scratched with cartoon stars, the kind you clip to a kid's backpack. Next to it, a pressed oval of a shoe with a diamond pattern. Torin sniffed, exhaled, and then did something I'd learned to trust. He inhaled in little ladders, as if climbing a smell I couldn't see. He looked to me once, not for permission, more like a promise. "I've got this." "Okay, buddy," I whispered. "Slow." He didn't slow. He slalomed between young firs, sunlight flickering along his back like a signal. I followed, branches painting my sleeves, the trail dissolving into soft duff that swallowed my steps. It smelled like wet rock and sap and the faint, warm sweetness kids carry after running hard. Torin stopped again and pressed his muzzle to the ground, then to the air, testing layers. A meadow opened briefly to our right, yellow with balsam root, and the city felt a lifetime away. I tried my phone. Nothing. Bars like ghosts. Torin's ears swiveled left. He made a sound I don't hear from him often. Not a bark, not a whine, just a low breath that says, "Listen." I held mine. The forest talked in clicks and hushes, and under it, a thread, thin, high, exhausted. "Hey?" Torin whipped his head toward a stand of lodge poles on the slope below us. He leaned into the leash so hard the handle creaked, toes digging, little body saying, "Now, now." I saw another shoe print sliding downhill, fresh enough to hold the shape of the tread. The sun blinked behind a cloud and the whole slope went from postcard bright to hospital white. Torin didn't wait for the light to come back. He pulled once, twice, then wrenched free of my loose grip and launched toward the trees, a streak of black and tan, vanishing into the green where that thin voice had come from, leaving me with one choice and a drop-off full of loose rock between us. The leash snapped against my wrist, then slipped, and Torin was already 10 yards down the slope before I could plant my boots. I cursed, half at myself, half at the speed of a German shepherd puppy when he's decided the world won't wait. Pebbles skidded under my soles, dust rising like smoke in the warm afternoon. The city skyline was just a memory now. Denver felt 100 miles away, even though it was only down the highway. Out here, it was just me, Torin, and that faint echo of a child's voice swallowed by trees. I half slid after him, grabbing at saplings to steady my fall. Torin didn't look back. He cut between the trunks with the conviction of a hound 3 times his age, his tail a black banner whipping side to side. Every few seconds he stopped dead, nose to the ground, then flicked his ears toward the shadows. I heard it again, a short, broken call, weak, like someone had forgotten how to shout. My chest tightened. Not the kind of sound you mistake for a bird. It was too raw, too human. "Torin," I hissed, more for comfort than command. He vanished behind a thicket of scrub oak, and for a second I thought I'd lost him. Then I spotted the sway of branches and a flash of tan fur ahead. I dropped to one knee on a rock, scraping my hand, and there it was on the ground, another clue. A crumpled snack wrapper, bright orange, stamped with cartoon dinosaurs. A kid's hand had dropped that, no question. The air cooled as we pushed deeper. The sun couldn't break through the tight canopy now, and the smell changed. Less dust, more moss, a trace of damp that didn't belong to summer. Torin gave a sharp, questioning whine, that sound he makes when he knows something is near but can't quite place it. I followed his gaze to the slope below. The trail had completely vanished, replaced by tangled roots and slick mud from a trickle of runoff. I cupped my hands and called, "Hello? Can you hear me?" My own voice startled me, bouncing between trunks. For a moment, nothing. Then, so faint I thought I imagined it, a muffled sob. Torin's ears twitched. He bolted again, this time with no hesitation, scrabbling down the incline, claws catching in bark and dirt. My pulse pounded in my throat. Whoever it was, we were close. Painfully close. I lunged after him, boots sliding, knees jarring with each drop. My phone rattled in my pocket, still dead. No bars. The only signal I had was Torin himself, carving a line through a place that wanted us lost. And then, just as I reached the bottom of the slope, he froze. His whole body lowered, tail stiff, nose pressed toward a dark clutch of trees ahead. He let out one short bark, sharp, urgent, like a flare shot into the air. From beyond that screen of trunks came a whisper, trembling, shaped like a name I didn't recognize. And then silence so deep it felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. The sound was so fragile I thought it might vanish if I moved too fast. My German Shepherd puppy crept forward first, shoulders low, ears stiff like antennae. He wasn't charging now. He was careful, deliberate, each paw a question. I followed, heart hammering, ducking under branches that clawed at my jacket. The light had thinned into green shade, and I could smell damp earth like rain had been here hours before. Then I saw him, curled under a fallen pine, knees hugged tight, face streaked with dirt. A boy, small, shivering. The pup stopped a few feet away and just lay down, nose pressed to the ground, tail thumping once in slow reassurance. No bark, no lunge, just a quiet presence. The boy's eyes opened, glassy and red. He whispered something I couldn't catch. I crouched, voice low. "Hey, buddy. My name's Keegan Hart. I'm 41. You're safe. This dog found you." My own words felt too big for the silence, so I let the puppy do the talking. The boy's hand twitched. The pup shuffled forward on his belly, inch by inch, until his muzzle brushed the boy's sleeve. A tiny hand lifted, hesitant, and touched the fur. The German Shepherd puppy leaned in harder, pressing warmth into that grip. It broke something in me. Out here, in this cold pocket of forest, a kid had found the one blanket that doesn't tear. I scanned the ground. A water bottle rolled near his hip, half empty, cap loose. No pack, no jacket. His sneakers were soaked. He'd been here a while. My phone still showed nothing. No bars, no way to tell anyone where we were. My pulse quickened, but I forced it down. Panic wasn't an option. The pup curled closer, chest against the boy's knees. I could hear his steady breathing, a rhythm the child began to mirror. He whispered again, a name this time, Theo. My throat tightened. "Theo, we've got you," I said, pulling my jacket around his shoulders. The dog licked his hand once, gentle, then laid his head across Theo's lap like he'd done it his whole short life. I tried raising my voice, calling for help, but the forest swallowed it whole. Only echoes came back. The puppy lifted his head, ears twitching, then nudged the boy as if to say, "Stay awake." His eyes met mine, dark, steady, asking what now. I didn't have the answer. The sky above was fading fast, shadows stretching long, and the temperature was already sliding down. If we tried to climb back blind, we'd lose each other. If we stayed, we risked the night. I ran my hand down the pup's back, feeling the tremble of muscles ready to guard. And that's when I realized the only chance Theo had tonight was the warmth beside him. The German Shepherd puppy had made his choice already. Now I had to make mine. Moving him wasn't an option. The slope we'd slid down was a slick mess of roots and loose stone, and Theo's legs were trembling just from sitting up. I pulled him closer, wrapping my jacket around both of us, but it was the pup who made the real difference. The dog pressed himself against Theo's chest, curling tight, a 6-month-old furnace with fur. The boy's breathing evened, his small fingers still tangled in the puppy's collar like he'd drown without it. The air was cooling faster than I wanted to admit. Afternoon was slipping toward evening, that time when shadows stretch thin and every gust feels sharper. I dug into my day pack for anything useful. Half a protein bar, an emergency blanket crumpled at the bottom, and a headlamp I'd picked up from REI months back. I clicked it on and set the strobe mode, hoping the pulsing light would leak through the canopy and catch an eye. The German Shepherd puppy lifted his head at the flashing beam, ears flicking, then settled again with a sigh that sounded almost human. I stroked his back, felt the steady rise and fall of his breath. "You're doing more than me right now," I whispered. The dog didn't move except to nose Theo's chin, coaxing another shaky breath out of him. "Where's your family, Theo?" I asked softly. His voice was a cracked whisper. "They were behind me. I ran, thought I knew the way." His words dissolved into a cough. I didn't push. Sometimes silence is safer. The pup filled it anyway, stretching his paws over Theo's knees, spreading his warmth. I tore the protein bar in half, gave a piece to the boy, chewed the other myself just to keep his nerves from firing alone. The puppy watched each bite with those wide eyes but never begged, never moved. It was as if he knew the rules of the night before they were written. Wind picked up through the trees, rattling branches overhead. The strobe blinked steadily, like a heartbeat. I blew 3 long blasts on my whistle, waited, then did it again. Only the rustle of pine needles answered. Theo shivered. I held him tighter, but the pup pressed in hardest, ribs humming with every breath, as if saying, "I'll hold the cold for you." Then, through the distance, far down the slope, something flared. A flicker of light, gone as soon as it appeared. My own pulse spiked, but the forest swallowed it quick. The dog's ears shot up. He growled low, not in warning but in focus, the sound he makes when he's choosing where to place all his hope. I stared into the dark, waiting, willing the flicker to come back. But the trees closed over us again, leaving just the blinking strobe, one boy's thin breath, and the steady weight of a puppy refusing to move. The forest had gone quiet in that strange way it does before night, when every sound feels too close. I shifted Theo against me, trying to keep him talking, because silence out here is the first step to slipping away. The pup stretched across his lap, chin resting on the boy's knee, eyes flicking between us as if checking we were both still breathing. "How old are you, Theo?" I asked gently. His lips moved, cracked and pale. 8, he whispered. Almost 9. The number hit me harder than I expected. 8. Still a kid who should have been home with cartoons and warm socks, not curled in a forest hollow with a stranger and a German Shepherd puppy for a blanket. "That's a strong age," I told him, forcing my voice steady. "When I was 8, I thought I could outrun the world. You'll get to outrun this too." He gave the smallest nod, then buried his fingers deeper in the dog's fur. The puppy shifted closer, pressing his ribs against Theo's chest until they breathed in the same rhythm. The air was colder now, each gust slipping under the thin layers I'd pulled around him. I smoothed out the crinkled emergency blanket and draped it over the 3 of us. It wasn't much, but with the pup wedged against him, Theo's shivering slowed. "Do you know what his name is?" I asked, tilting my chin at the dog. Theo blinked, waiting. "Torin," I said softly. "But you can call him Pup if it's easier." The boy tried the name on his lips, a tiny sound that made the dog's tail thump twice. That simple response pulled a flicker of light into Theo's eyes, the first I'd seen since finding him. I kept him talking in small steps. His favorite color, green, like his sneakers. His favorite snack, grape jelly sandwiches. Each answer steadier than the last, pulled along by the steady warmth of the puppy's body. Whenever his voice wavered, the dog nudged him, like a partner keeping the line from breaking. I blew the whistle again, 3 sharp blasts. Nothing answered but the hiss of wind through needles. My headlamp still blinked above us, a lonely pulse against the dark canopy. I wanted to promise rescue was minutes away, but lies weigh heavy on kids. Instead, I said, "We'll stay right here until help finds us. And until then, this pup isn't moving an inch from you." Theo shifted, eyes fluttering like he might drift off. The puppy lifted his head and gave a low, steady whine, nudging the boy's chin. Theo opened his eyes again, just barely. He won't leave?" "No," I said, pressing my hand on the dog's back, feeling that heartbeat steady and strong. "Not tonight." And then, through the silence, my headlamp blinked red, battery running low. The strobe gave one weak blink, then another, and my stomach dropped. If the light died, we'd just be another shadow in a forest full of them. The pup shifted, sensing my pulse spike, and let out a low hum through his nose, pressing harder against Theo. The boy's fingers tightened around the dog's collar like it was the only rope keeping him tied to the world. I tried not to show panic. "It's okay," I said, keeping my voice calm. We'll make our own light if we have to. Theo didn't answer, just buried his face in the puppy's fur. I could feel his tiny shivers slow, the dog's warmth wrapping him better than any blanket. For a moment, it felt like the three of us breathed on the same beat. I pulled the whistle from my chest strap and blew 3 short blasts, the universal call. The sound cut sharp through the trees, then faded into nothing. No answer. My ears rang in the silence that followed. The German Shepherd puppy lifted his head, ears pricked, then barked once, sudden and sure. The sound echoed farther than my whistle had, bouncing into the unseen. "That's it, boy," I whispered. "You're louder than me." I cupped my hands and called again, my voice raw. Nothing but wind replied. But the pup wouldn't quit. He barked twice more, evenly spaced, a rhythm like he was calling roll in a classroom. Theo startled at the sound, then clung tighter to him. He's talking," the boy whispered. "Yeah," I said. "He's telling the forest we're here." The puppy lay back down, resting his head on Theo's chest as if to anchor him, but his eyes stayed locked on the dark. Every little crack of branch, every sigh of the wind, he caught it before I did. He was our radar, our warmth, our courage stitched into one small body. The sky had gone that dull gray blue that comes right before black. I checked my watch, only 7:15, but the trees ate light, faster than any clock. My phone flickered awake. Still nothing, not even a ghost of a signal. I shoved it back, the battery too precious to waste. Theo coughed, voice rasping. "Do you think they're looking?" "They are," I said. "And when they get close enough, this pup is going to guide them straight here." The boy's eyes closed halfway, comforted not by my words, but by the steady rise and fall under his hand. The German Shepherd puppy gave a soft, deliberate whine, then pressed his paw onto Theo's leg, holding him in place like he understood sleep was dangerous right now. And then, so faint I almost missed it, somewhere beyond the ridge came a crackle, like static on a radio. For a second, I thought my ears were tricking me, but then it came again, a short burst, like someone pressing a radio button too long. The pup's head shot up, ears swiveling toward the ridge. His body stiffened, tail low, and then he barked once, sharp like a flare into the night. I froze, waiting. The sound didn't repeat, just the forest breathing, needling me with silence. Theo stirred. "What is it?" His voice was a scratchy whisper. "Could be rescuers," I told him, though it might have been a hunter's static or nothing at all. Still, hope is fuel, and the boy needed it as much as I did. I brushed pine needles from his hair, trying to smile. "Means somebody's out there with a radio." The German Shepherd puppy pawed at my leg, then nosed the slope above us. He wanted to climb. My heart clenched. Leaving Theo even for a minute felt wrong, but we needed height. A single bar of service, one sliver of signal, might mean rescue. I pulled Theo closer. "Listen, I've got to step up the hill and try my phone. Just a minute, you'll stay right here with him." I rested my hand on the pup's back. "This dog won't leave you, not for a second." Theo's hand clung harder to the collar, his eyes filled with a fear that cut through me. "You'll come back?" "Always," I said. "Count to 60, and I'll be right here." The pup gave a low growl, not angry, just anxious like he knew what I was planning. "Stay," I whispered firmly, his ears pinned back, but he settled beside Theo, chest pressed against the boy's side like a brace. I scrambled up the incline, boots slipping in loose gravel, hands grabbing at roots for balance. My lungs burned, but I forced myself higher until the canopy broke enough to show a slice of sky. I yanked out my phone. Nothing. I tilted it toward the open gap. One bar blinked alive, thin as a thread. My thumb flew. 911. A text, not a call. Voice wouldn't hold on one bar. I typed, "Lost child. Coordinates, Denver foothills. Need rescue. Hit send." The bar flickered, then vanished. My chest clenched until the phone vibrated. Message sent. The screen went black. Battery done. For a moment, the ridge spun around me. I sucked in air, stared at the darkening horizon, then slid back down toward the boy and the pup. They were exactly as I'd left them. The German Shepherd puppy pressed tight, Theo's hand fisted in his fur. I dropped beside them, heart pounding with relief and dread all at once. "Help knows where we are," I said, brushing pine needles off Theo's sleeve. The boy's lips parted in the ghost of a smile. The dog lifted his head, ears catching something in the distance, a sound I hadn't heard yet. He let out a short, questioning bark, then froze, eyes locked up slope. And then, faint but certain, the wind carried an answer. A human whistle, far off, rising through the trees. The whistle was faint, scattered by the wind, but it was real. I felt it in my chest before my ears caught it again, a thin call threaded through branches. The German Shepherd puppy stood instantly, paws planted, ears high. He barked twice, the same measured rhythm he'd been using all night, as if he'd been waiting for this moment to answer back. Theo's eyes snapped open. "They hear us?" His voice cracked, brittle with hope. "Could be," I said, though my throat was tight. "Let's make sure they can." I cupped my hands and shouted until my lungs burned, then blew 3 blasts on the whistle strapped to my vest. The sound ricocheted through the forest, sharp but small compared to the sweep of mountains around us. For a moment, nothing. Then the whistle came again, closer, echoing like a promise. The pup shifted, whining, muscles trembling with the urge to run toward it. I grabbed his collar. "Not yet," I whispered. He pressed against my hand, quivering with focus. Theo clutched his fur, whispering the dog's name like a prayer. "Torin! Torin!" And the puppy leaned into him, steadying them both. The sky had dropped fully into that deep navy that eats details. My headlamp blinked its last, then died, leaving only the weak strobe I'd clipped higher in the branches. I yanked the reflective blanket tighter over the 3 of us, then tied an orange bandana to a sapling, letting it flutter against the dark. Little things mattered now. Any signal could mean everything. The whistle sounded again, but this time it drifted away, sliding down a wrong draw like rescuers had veered off track. My stomach lurched. No, not that way. My words felt useless. Theo's breathing quickened, panic rising. The puppy barked again, 3 sharp beats, chest vibrating under my palm. It wasn't random. He was marking the rhythm, throwing it out like a rope. I joined him. 1 whistle, then 3 sharp claps of my hands to carry. The forest answered with silence. Seconds bled long. I felt Theo sag, his strength leaking out with every shiver. I pressed him tighter against my chest, the pup squeezing between us, refusing to let the boy fall under. And then from the ridge above, a flash, brief, white, like a headlamp catching on glass. My heart jumped. "There," I whispered, not sure if I was convincing him or myself. "They're circling back." The German Shepherd puppy's tail gave 1 sweep, then he barked again, louder, throwing everything into the night. And this time, clear and certain, a man's voice called back. "Hold on, we're coming." The shout was like a rope thrown across a canyon, thin, almost impossible, but it held. Theo's head jerked up, eyes wide, and the pup exploded with sound. Not frantic yelps, not wild barking, but 3 deep, clear calls, spaced just like before. The rhythm carried, bouncing off trunks and stones until it felt bigger than the dog himself. "They're close," I told Theo, though I kept my voice low, steady. The boy's grip tightened in the puppy's fur. "He's guiding them," I added. And it was true. My German Shepherd puppy wasn't just barking. He was answering, calling, and waiting, marking his place like a beacon with a heartbeat. Another voice answered, this one clearer, a man yelling, "Do it again!" The pup obeyed before I could speak. 3 more barks, chest shaking with the effort, his paws braced on the ground like he could push the sound uphill with sheer will. Theo gasped, a sharp intake of breath that cracked into something like a laugh. He's talking to them. His small face, pale with cold, lit for the first time since I'd found him. That flicker of belief was worth more than heat. I joined in, blowing the whistle in the same 3-beat rhythm, syncing with the dog's call. Bark, bark, bark. Whistle, whistle, whistle. The sound built its own ladder through the trees. And then, above us, faint but real, came the beam of a flashlight arcing down the slope. The pup barked once more, then whined, tail whipping side to side, but he didn't leave Theo. That loyalty kept him anchored, even when every muscle begged to bolt toward the light. I pressed a hand to his back. "Good boy, stay with him." The beam of light faltered, then swung wide. They were still too far, maybe confused by the terrain. If they dropped into the wrong gully, we'd lose them again. My pulse hammered in my throat. "They need more," I muttered. The pup seemed to hear the thought. He lifted his head, chest expanding, and let out 3 more thunderous barks, louder than I'd ever heard from him. Each one carried like a drum beat. Theo clapped his small hands weakly in time, adding his own thin voice. "Here! We're here!" And finally, blessedly, the flashlight beam locked onto our strobe in the branches and held. Another shout rolled down the slope. "Stay put! We see you!" The dog's tail thumped hard against Theo's leg, and for the first time that night, I let myself believe we might actually get out. But then the light stopped moving. The ridge was too steep, the drop too dangerous. Voices argued above, wind stealing their words. The rescuers were near, but not near enough. The beam of light above us swung back and forth, trapped at the ridge like a promise it couldn't keep. I could hear the frustration in their voices. Too steep, too loose, no safe way down. My chest tightened. We were so close, and yet a canyon of rock and night stood in the way. Theo clung harder to the pup, his small voice breaking. "They can't get us?" His question wasn't for me, not really. It was for the dog pressed against him, the one who hadn't moved all night. The German Shepherd puppy answered with a sound I'd been waiting for. 3 strong barks, deliberate, spaced like steps. I felt it then, the rhythm he'd chosen hours ago. Bark, 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 a pattern the rescuers could follow even without seeing. He barked again, chest vibrating against Theo, tail stiff with focus. The men up top shouted back. Then I heard the clatter of gear, ropes unfurling, carabiners snapping shut. "They're setting lines," I whispered. Relief hit so hard it almost knocked me over. The puppy didn't relax. He stood braced, muzzle pointed uphill, the living beacon that had carried us this far. A rope dropped, slapping against stone. A figure appeared, headlamp glowing like a second moon. "Hold tight, we're coming down." The rescuer's voice rang with authority, but it was the pup who answered first. 3 barks in the same steady cadence. The climber froze, then laughed under his breath. "We hear you, boy. Keep it up." Theo's eyes shone through dirt and exhaustion, locked on the dog like he was witnessing a miracle. The puppy pressed closer, then turned his head and licked the boy's cheek once, almost solemn, before barking again. Bark, bark, bark. The rope squealed as another rescuer began his descent. Flashlights cut through branches, throwing wild shadows across our hollow. The pup held his ground, every bark ricocheting off trunks, guiding them like arrows. When the first rescuer's boots hit the dirt just yards away, Theo let out a sob that cracked into a laugh. He buried his face into the dog's neck, and the puppy leaned all his weight back into him, anchoring him in the joy. Strong hands reached us. "We've got you now," the man said. He wrapped an arm around Theo, clipped a harness tight, and gave me a nod that hit harder than words. "If not for that pup," he didn't finish, but he didn't need to. The German Shepherd puppy gave one last bark, softer this time, then sank back against Theo like the job was done. And as the rescuer signaled up the rope, the forest filled not with fear, but with the thrum of victory. Theo rose off the ground in a harness that looked 3 sizes too big, his small arms clamped tight around the rescuer's shoulders. The rope creaked as they climbed, flashlight beams crisscrossing the slope like a net of stars. I stood below, heart hammering, watching every inch of that ascent as if it were the first breath after drowning. The pup didn't take his eyes off Theo. My German Shepherd puppy paced a tight circle, whining low, then sat rigid, tail flicking, ears straining toward the boy's fading silhouette. "He's okay," I whispered, ruffling his neck. He leaned into me for half a second, then barked once toward the ridge, as if demanding proof until Theo was safely on solid ground. A shout came from above. "He's up! He's safe!" My knees nearly buckled. The puppy leapt once in place, tail wagging hard enough to knock pine needles into the air. For the first time all night, I laughed, a broken, relieved sound that felt like it came from somewhere I hadn't touched in years. Another rope dropped, and soon hands reached for me. They clipped me in, hauled me upward, but the pup was still below, staring up at us, chest rising fast, paws digging into dirt. "Don't worry, boy, you're next," one rescuer called down. When I reached the top, Theo was wrapped in a blanket, cheeks streaked but alive, eyes half closed in exhaustion. His small hand lifted weakly, searching. The pup answered before I could. A harness slid under his chest, and with a scramble of paws and a little yelp of surprise, he was hoisted up, fur bristling under the cold air. The moment his paws touched the ridge, Theo's hand found him. The German Shepherd puppy pressed into the boy's side as though the night had never broken them apart. Rescue lights flooded the clearing. Reds, whites, the soft hum of radios. And suddenly, the darkness we'd been fighting all night didn't matter. One rescuer crouched, shaking his head. "That dog, he's the reason we're standing here. Without those barks, we'd still be chasing shadows." His words carried weight, not just as praise, but as truth. Theo held the pup's collar, eyes shut, whispering something into the fur only the dog could hear. The puppy just sighed, curling around him, content in a way only heroes are when their work is done. And as I stood under that Colorado sky, city lights twinkling far below, I realized we hadn't just found a boy tonight. We'd found a story of loyalty, of warmth in the cold, of a pup whose bark had been the lifeline that carried us all back to hope. The ride down the mountain felt like exhaling after holding my breath for hours. Rescue lights bobbed ahead of us, radios crackled with calm voices, and Theo clung to his blanket with one hand while the other stayed tangled in the dog's fur. My German Shepherd puppy rode beside him, chest pressed close, his tail sweeping slow arcs across the blanket as if erasing the last of the fear. I walked just behind, my legs rubber, my throat raw, but my heart fuller than it had been in years. Out there in the dark, it hadn't been me who kept Theo alive. It was the pup, steady, warm, relentless in his voice when mine faltered. 3 barks at a time like a promise that never cracked. When we reached the trailhead, floodlights painted everything in harsh white. Paramedics leaned in, asking questions, checking vitals, but Theo's eyes stayed fixed on the puppy. "He didn't leave me," the boy whispered, and he was right. That dog had carried him through the longest night of his life. Looking back on that night, I realized this little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. Because caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. It's showing up when the world looks dark and letting their light carry you both back to safety. If you're watching this, know that sharing a story like Theo's and Torin's is more than passing time. It spreads the proof that compassion matters, that rescue works, that lives change when people choose not to look away. Every share plants a seed for the next animal waiting in the cold. Join our Brave Paws family. Be their voice. Be their hope.